up, everybody? Michael Richards here with Elite Athletic Performance. Welcome back to the very palatial and swanky EAP recording studios for another video in our series of videos aimed towards helping the high school and college JUCO coaches, the guys that are charged with developing their team in the off season and in season, trying to cover some of those topics that are just that have a lot of gray area. Another one of those is the on-ramp. If you watch the video that we put out last week, I got about 15 minutes into the video and went, I probably should have done a video on ramping, but I have ADD and here we are. So I figured I'd go ahead and this needed to be the next one to come out. So getting right to it. Who am I? I'm glad you asked. So this being the very first video that I've recorded since mine and my partner's overwhelming victory at the Steve Cranford 30th annual bass tournament at Lake Ouachita last weekend. So who am I? You can call me champ, I guess. But anyways, no, it was a great time, great tournament. If you don't know, yes, I love baseball, but bass fishing is definitely my first favorite sport. So anyways, a lot of fun. We had a great time for a great event. Ready to go back and defend our title next year. So, who am I for real? Michael Richards. I'm the owner of Elite Athletic Performance, LLC in Benton, Arkansas. If you care about my background, you can check it out on our website. If like I said, it's a unique background. It's not really that awesome. It's just unique. Before we get started, please like and subscribe. As always, comment on these videos. Please, please, please. It used to get on my nerves when I would watch a YouTube video and they were begging for people to comment and like and subscribe, and man, I understand that now. So please, before we dive right off into it, if you need anything, if you are thinking about purchasing a Mark Pro, you can support our channel, get 10% off of your purchase. I'd pay for your shipping at least by using EAP LLC at checkout. All right, so I always do a devotional on these videos. I don't speak on them because I feel like I ruin it. So if you want to read these just pause the video, read them. All right, getting down to it. What is an on-ramp? Why should they on-ramp? Who should on-ramp? How long should an on-ramp last, and how often should they on-ramp? But before we get into that, I want to, especially for you players and for you coaches, like I would use this, this is one of those things you need to view all of this information through this lens, because an on-ramp is boring. Like, there's just no other way around it. There's nothing sexy about it. There is nothing fun about it. It is what it is, but it's very crucial. So I read a book called Atomic Habits a few months ago, and my mind got completely blown because I had been thinking about this a lot. Because if you are familiar with arm care and you're familiar with the things that go on with it, wrist weights and the reverse throws and the bands and all that, there's not really anything sexy about that stuff. It's a bunch of just tedious work. It's not really hard work. It's just a bunch of little check mark boxes. I always talk about, I don't coin many phrases. I steal most things from other coaches that are better than me, but I think I coined this phrase. This is very much a success by 1,000 check marks situation. Bunch of little check marks. It's the million minnows that make a shape of a whale, to scare off the shark. It's a million. There are no big check marks. There are just a ton of little boring check marks. So in that book, he was interviewing an Olympic weightlifting coach, and he asked them he asked the coach, what's something you notice in all of the ones that are the super high level ones. And he said the answer surprised him, but really then it shouldn't have surprised him. He said the best of the best aren't inherently more talented than you. They might be a little bit, but the main thing is they are just more willing than you to do the boring stuff every single day. You can't do red line awesome activities every single day. The body will break down. Can't do it. You have to do, but you can't skip that little stuff. It's huge. You can't do it. You have to have the little boring stuff in between. So, and you have to be able to do the longer boring stuff like an on-ramp to keep yourself healthy and to give yourself a better chance of success down the road. So, what is an on-ramp? An on-ramp is just like you would expect. It is the base. It is just a general ramping up of the intensity of your exercises and the duration. Really, it goes for anything. It's like with exercise and all that, but with arm care especially, when you take off from throwing, you have to on ramp back up. We'll get into who and why and where and how and all that stuff later, but that's the basic concept of it. Green represents low intensity throws. This is a linear amount of time right here. This is a 12-week amount of time. This represents throwing intensity over here. So the green is getting up there into that 4 range and 6 range. Those are still, first off, that 1 through 20 is that's just a made up number. I just made that up for easy math to make to make this discussion easier. I guesstimate there's absolutely nothing scientific behind the heights of these intensity bars. I was just, like I said, just for discussion's sake. Green represents your light throwing. That first week, it is practically no more than like the catcher standing at home plate and like lobbing it maybe behind the pitcher, between the pitcher and second base. It would take about that intensity. That's pretty much it for that intensity. Definitely wouldn't be any more than a lob from like home plate to second base. And definitely a lob. No online throwing. It's all rainbows. So then that second week, we up that intensity just a little bit, up that distance a little bit. And really, in layman's terms, if I was trying to describe this to a kid, this is how we speak to your arm. This is how we talk to it and tell it, we need you to get more and more prepared to be able to do these higher level throws. So then in that third week, we would ramp it up to up here in the 10 range. That's getting on up there with a little bit more intensity. Then we go to 12 on the 4th week. And again, these are just numbers that I threw together just for easy conversation. 5th week, we're getting up here into the 14, and then 6th week is when it gets red. And you got to understand going into this, that's again for discussion, because once you get into hard throwing, obviously, these are representative 6 days. There's 6 days in this week that this is going to happen, this low intensity throwing. Same here, and then here there will be some wave loading. There'll be one day that it's more like this, but like the highest intensity we'll get to here this particular week, but there's 6 days of throwing in each one of these weeks, minimum 5, okay? And then right here, once you get into this area, you're not going to redline these throws every single day. There's going to be like one day of this, and then it's going to be a couple days of this. That is a concept that I talked about that I call wave loading, or it is called wave loading. Basically in a given week, once you're on-ramped, there'll be one day that looks like this. When you're looking at a much more zoomed in view of it, there'll be one day that looks like this, and then the next day it'll look like that because you threw really hard this day, and then you take it easy the next day, but you still throw. That's the part that a lot of people miss. You still throw, just very lightly, and then that third day it gets up here into this range, and then the 4th or 5th day that week you're ready for another one of these high intensity days, assuming there's no pain and you're feeling good and all that stuff. So all right, that's a basic on ramp. So why should they on-ramp? This is where we get into the weeds of this a little bit, all right? So if you watched my video, the video on shock injuries, and judging by the views, you did not. So I will go over this again. Davis's law is used in anatomy and physiology to describe how soft tissue models along imposed demands. You're like, what? All right, it's a physiological principle stating that soft tissue will, I added that word, will heal according to the manner in which they are mechanically stressed. Okay, all right, so hang in there. I don't like big words and all that stuff either. So what does that mean? Your body will only be prepared to handle what it has been doing lately, okay? I love this example. I use it anytime I talk about Davis's law. If you're from around here in Arkansas and you're familiar with this place, the University of Arkansas is our professional football team, and baseball and basketball and all that other stuff. In 2015-ish, somewhere around in there, the current coach at the time had an idea that he was going to skip 2-a-days and they were not going to tackle to the ground. And honestly, I was like, yeah, I can kind of see where he's going with that. You're trying to avoid injuries. You want bodies fresh. Well, he and they, nor I, at the time, really, really, truly grasped Davis's Law. I knew about it. I had heard about it. I had read about it, but I never had seen it in the real world applied. And they didn't tackle to the ground all of fall camp. And if you're familiar with college football, the first game of the year is usually what they call a tune-up game, and you'll play a team that is you should beat handily. You pay them like $1 million, and they come get their brains beat in, so you can basically have a preseason game. So in that preseason game, and I don't remember who Arkansas was playing. We go out there and everybody gets hurt, and I'm talking like it was borderline going into the stands to get people to play type stuff. Walking wounded. Why? They were in shape. They were in the weight room. There's no weight room answer for that. There's no weight room response to explain that. But Davis's Law explains that because their bodies had not been tackled. Their bodies, in that particular case, the mechanically stressed, the point in which they are mechanically stressed, which basically just means the stuff that they endure, the stuff that your soft tissue endures, it will be prepared for it. It's a callus. It's just like a callus, building on your hands, but it's not a callus inside your body, but it's your body responding with things and mechanisms to protect you for whatever it's been enduring. Okay, so your arm does not have deductive reasoning skills. Your body doesn't, but especially your arm. We're talking about your arm in this video. Nor does it speak English. So if I were to ask a player, are you going to ever throw a ball again? They would look at me, because it's a very stupid question, okay? Well, your arm has no idea. And so if you take off 3 days, it's like, well, we don't do that anymore, and it stops being prepared for it. And we're going to get into this a little bit more in a minute, but the longer you go removed from throwing that ball, the farther you are from being prepared to throw that ball. Okay, so, and like I said, you can't go, hey, I need you to be ready for this. I know we're not throwing right now, but I need you to be ready for this. It doesn't speak English. You can't tell it to do that. It only speaks activity. That's the only language it knows and what it's been doing. So you have to keep it, like I said, the only language it speaks is the activities you are doing. So throwing you have to maintain a schedule of throwing, okay, to keep those, quote, calluses built up in there. And it's not calluses, but that's just a simple way to describe it, okay. So, all right, so next one, moving on. So who should on-ramp? Who needs to on-ramp? All right, if you've gone more than a week without throwing, you're getting into that area, that gray area of whether you need to on-ramp. And it would be like a mini on-ramp. So if you haven't touched a ball, it's Monday, you haven't touched a ball since the Sunday before last, I definitely would not go long toss that day, okay? You probably need to go a day or two of light toss, and then you would probably be good to go long toss on Wednesday. I probably wouldn't get on the mound. If there is one thing that I have noticed, and it is a massive difference between high school guys, even college guys, and the pro guys, and a lot of this has to do with the fact that they don't control their schedule, and I get that, but there's still a lot more they could do, and the high school guys and some college guys could do, but just don't. The pro guys, their on-ramp is like, if we were looking at that line of linear time that went across the screen, like this week right here would be practically just tossing a ball like that. Like, I'm talking the most low intensity you could possibly imagine. The second week is getting on up there into your normal light tosses. But the part that really impresses me is when they get over here into this 8th week or something like that. This week it doesn't go from medium range tosses to mound work or high velocity long toss or velocity work. They literally are like, okay, I have 15 throws twice this week from the mound, 80%. All fastballs, no batters. They will spend 5 to 8 weeks on the mound before they will ever see a batter. And then they're still not ready to be in a game because of the adrenaline. They understand the adrenaline factor that goes into pitching, and they know they can do a whole lot of damage if they're not careful, if they get out on the mound with adrenaline when their body has not been prepared to withstand that extra boost of power that they get from adrenaline. So there's a huge, it's always impressed me that they're like, they know, like they're getting on the mound, and I know how many throws I have. I know, I don't really dictate it with them unless they ask, because they receive paychecks to play baseball. So I'm not going to like dictate their throwing. They already know, so I'm just there to bounce things off of if they need me. So that's one of those things that you got to know. And like I said, it's harder for the high school guys because they don't really control their schedule. But if you're paying attention to the schedule, you can be, if you are serious about going to the next level, playing at a professional level and all that stuff, you do need to look into maybe on-ramping better, assuming you get a ball out of your hand. But we're going to talk about that and how to handle that a little bit more in a minute. The other one is, why did you stop throwing? So if you went over a week without throwing and it was because you had arm pain, that's going to impact how you ramp back up. Was it bad enough that you need to go talk to a doctor? Did you do some physical therapy? Was it 2 weeks and you shut down? You're going to have to on-ramp. That's going to impact how long you do your no-throw period. Your low-intensity throwing. If you shut down because of arm pain, you're probably going to have a week or two, even though you only shut down for 2 weeks, you're probably going to have a week or two of low-intensity throwing just to make sure we don't overdo it. You cannot put toothpaste back in a tube. And I always think of that, like if your arm is not ready, one throw too many could squeeze that toothpaste out. So we got to be careful with that. If you didn't throw because you went to the beach and you were with your girlfriend and y'all didn't throw or whatever, like that's different. We can probably go 1 day of easy throwing, make sure everything feels fine, and then move on to your normal throwing schedule. So, all right. So how long should an on-ramp last? This is another one that there's lots of moving parts here. So there's no black and white answer. There are right and wrong answers. There's no black and white answers to this. So we're going to do the best we can. I'm going to give you a couple scenarios just to help you understand it. So always remember Davis's law. Your body is only prepared for the things that it has been enduring or it has been experiencing recently. Okay. Now, also remember, the longer you go without throwing, the longer the on-ramp, okay? And that can also be impacted by injury history, things like that. So if you went 8 weeks without throwing and you have a pretty checkered injury history, it's probably going to be a little bit more withdrawn. You got to be aware of that because the season's going to start regardless, whether you're on-ramped or not. You got to have the wherewithal to look back in time. And I'm telling you, how fast time goes. You look at the first day of high school season and you start backtracking 12 weeks, you get way into the fall. So, you got to be careful with that. So, at least around here, we start in February. So, all right. So, I'll put this graphic up here. I'm sure it's hard to see on the screen because of the white background. I'll put it up here somewhere. So, basic on-ramp concept. This is talking about the length of your on-ramp. So, athlete A over here at the top, this black line right here represents how many weeks that he took off from throwing, okay? So he's got a clean injury history, everything's good. We're probably going to on-ramp him for 2 weeks and then get a week of medium intensity throwing, and then we're going to, assuming everything's good and he's recovering well, we're going to jump off into this and get him ramped back up the mound. That's also assuming the time of year and what his goals are. If this guy's already throwing hard and he doesn't need to gain velocity, he's got what he needs, we're going to be way more on the maintenance path. This is going to be, he might have like 1 day of throwing hard a week because I don't want the season to roll around and him not have these check marks. I want those to happen, but like a guy that's needing to gain velocity is going to throw hard at least twice a week, sometimes 3, depending on how his arm feels. So, that's going to look a lot different. But just generally speaking, if everything's good with this guy, we're going to jump off into whatever we have planned for him in this week, fourth week right here. So, now I also need to bring up, you got to remember, I am generally speaking, I look at on-ramps and I say, all right, how many weeks did you take off? 4 weeks. Okay, so we need to on-ramp for 4 weeks. I go 1 week for week. So if you've been off 4 weeks, then we're going to on-ramp for 4 weeks. There are a lot of people who would say that that's not conservative enough. And I would actually tend to agree. But I rarely get the chance to on-ramp people properly because they sit on their thumbs and then come to me when basically time is already up and ask me to be a magician. So that's where I kind of have to do the best I can with what I have, to try to make something happen. So Alan Jaeger recommends 2 weeks for every week off of throwing. We're going to get into that in a little bit. I don't necessarily disagree with it. I think that's a little over conservative, but I mainly know in the real world, you're just never going to get that kind of time. Now, Alan is also working with, Division I kids and like professional guys that can literally, they're so good, they can walk in the office and be like, this is my schedule. Do you want me or not? We're not quite there yet. So that is the elite of the elite type people right there. So I have actually heard about his guys being like, we're not going to this professional club, we're not going to this professional club because the program that they would force them into was not suitable, and they got what they wanted because they were that good. So you want to get what you want, be good, get better. So don't get mad, get better. All right, athlete B, he took 6 weeks off right here. He's good on his injury history, so we're gonna low intensity throw him for 4 weeks because he did take a little bit longer off. And then we're going to ramp up and we're going to get 2 weeks of higher intensity, like medium intensity, and then we're going to hop off into the high intensity stuff right here. Now, again, let's say this guy's a senior, and he throws 75, and he knows he's not going to play he has a very talented high school team. He knows that he's got to gain velocity or he's not going to play. Depending on that and a couple other circumstances and maybe a conversation with him and then maybe even his parents, we might cut this on-ramp down because depending on the time of year, we may be running out of time to try to make something happen. The moral of that story is if you're watching this and you might one day consider being a part of our velocity program, do not wait until December to call us or to email us. You got to get in the fall. Like the earlier in the fall, the better, because we have to have time to on-ramp you. We have to have time to assess all that stuff. And velocity programs take time. They're 6 week cycles minimum, so like there's just a lot that goes into it, and you can't force stuff. You've got to have time to do it. So generally speaking, like I said, we would hop off in on this 7th week right here and start his high velocity. All right, so now athlete C, this is the one that really gets my gears grinding a little bit, and I've had this happen many, many times. Again, if you're watching this and you're local, or even if you're not local, because we have remote athlete programming, don't do this. Please don't do this. All right, so, and I've had this happen so many times, it's insane. All right, athlete C, right here. Let me make sure this screen doesn't turn on. Athlete C, he has not touched a ball in 8 weeks, okay? It is December 15th. He has not touched a baseball since October 15th when he stopped playing high school ball, or when his fall ball was done. Okay? He has not touched a baseball. It is December 15th. He is a senior. He wants to play in college ball. He wants to play college baseball. He only throws 73, 75 miles an hour, and he knows he won't even play much on his high school team if he doesn't gain velocity. Now, what he was doing during these 8 weeks, I have no idea. I have no idea. Your goals are not as big as you think they are if you didn't have the time to get in touch with us until December 15th. But it is what it is. And I can't tell you how many times I've had this happen. Now, hypothetically speaking, let's just do the math here. He didn't touch a ball for 8 weeks. If you were to follow Alan Jaeger's, like what he recommends for an on-ramp program, it is March 15th before we can even throw hard. Okay? Now, again, I don't follow that just because I never have time to do it. But even if you follow my recommendations, that's going to put you at the exact start of the high school season. Okay? So you can't do this to yourself. You can't do it to me. You can't do it to whoever you're asking to help you. You got to be more aware than that. So had he come in And again, why he took this time off, I don't know. But if it was because of injury, that changes a few, or not injury, but because of arm pain or something, that changes a few things. I would still argue that we should have probably jumped in right about here and started a green light throwing period to see if that arm pain was there. Okay. Now, if there's one thing that I get torched quite a bit on social media for, it's this. And I don't care, because I truly believe this. I don't think it is a good idea for a baseball player that is pain-free to stop throwing a baseball pretty much every day until their career is over. All year. 12 months out of the year. Now, I know some of you just passed out. Hopefully somebody gets the video paused before you wake back up. Hear me out. I am not talking about throwing hard. I don't like no-throw periods. I really love no-throw hard periods. All right? That's what this right here would look like. That right there. This could be 3 days, 4 days, 5 days a week of throwing the football around. Something to maintain those tissues and let your arm make sure it knows that eventually you will start throwing hard again. See, now, if this kid right here walks in on December 15th, it's still too late. It's still too late. He should have been in earlier. But all we have to do is just do a 2-week quick little high or medium intensity on-ramp, and we can jump in on this 10th week right here and start his high velocity stuff right there. We don't have to do all of this. See, I mean, I just ran out of screen because, like, technically, if you're looking at linear time, you would need to take this right here and put it on the end of this, you know, and it would be over here. Like, I didn't want to make the print so small, you know. So, like, this is all linear. So, like, this time right here this is on the end of that, you know. So if we're trying to get anything done before the season starts, we got to get on this. So this is why I like this. And personally, I feel like between the fact that high school and a lot of college kids don't have, first off, they don't have control of their schedule, and second, they're kids, and the only thing they really do that well is make poor choices, at least consistently. The only thing they do consistently is make poor choices. So you're not really going to get them the on-ramp, even if you do have the time. It's going to be really hard, and you're going to have to stand on their chest to make it happen. So I would rather just keep this right here. That way their arm is staying relatively baseline in shape, and we don't have to worry about anything that's popped up while they weren't touching a baseball. So that's why I'm a big fan of no-throw hard periods instead of complete no-throw periods. Now, if you had an injury, that's obviously completely different. This is all talking about pain-free stuff. I'm not a physical therapist or a doctor. I don't deal with injured athletes. It's not legal for me to deal with injured athletes. So, all right. So, how often should they on-ramp? Well, stay ready so you don't have to get ready. That's what I was just talking about right there. You stay ready, and then that way you don't have to on-ramp. If you keep taking a ball out of your hand because you listen to some guru online tell you need to get a ball out of your hand for 6 weeks, then you're going to have to on-ramp for at least 6 weeks. So personally, I say don't get the ball out of your hand, and then you don't have to do anything other than that little mini on-ramp to just make sure everything's good for you to throw hard. So that is the end of it. Quick little video. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support us, support this channel, check out our Patreon page. Patreon.com EAP LLC. That's what it'll look like right there. We've got $5 a month memberships. If we could build some of those to help, these videos take about 20 hours to make from start to finish. If we could build a little bit of a Patreon following to help expedite, we could hire some of this video processing to be done, expedite some of this, and it would get these videos out way faster. So eventually we'll have exclusive information here. I honestly just haven't figured out how to do that and what to put on here. Maybe some webinars. If you have any thoughts on products or things like that that you would like to see, please leave them in the comments and give me some feedback on that so we know where to go with this stuff. So I appreciate you guys watching. We'll see you in the next one.